Hello again. I'm Janice Debo, and I am your host with Courage, Confidence, and Connections podcast. Today, my guest is Gretchen, and I'm going to let her pronounce her last name. I don't want to butcher it. And welcome, Gretchen.
Thank you so much. My name is Gretchen Bergantine.
It's not that hard, I guess. It's just really long.
It is, yes. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. And we always have fun on these, laughter, sometimes tears. I hope you don't cry, but if you do, it's okay. I might cry with you.
You never know.
That's right. That's right. We'll let our audience speak for themselves when they listen. If they want to cry or laugh, that's fine.
Exactly.
And just so our audience knows, we'll probably do, and you, I've got a nice kitty cat who always tends to get vocal when I'm recording. Uh, he doesn't want to be left out.
I don't blame him.
Goodness. Anyway, so welcome. And I wanted you to share a little bit about your early journey. And I know that I have interviewed other people that are in the highly sensitive people category, and I am myself, and we'll learn more about that. So, Gretchen, give me and our audience a little bit of background of your journey and whatever you feel free to share.
Absolutely. I love talking about high sensitivity and this beautiful, unique trait that we have, some of us have. For me, I always knew I was different. I always knew I beat to my own drum. I was always very independent and I just always felt a little different from other people. And when 2020 came around, of course, we were all in the midst of COVID. And my mom had come out from Wisconsin, which is where I grew up. My parents still live there. And my mom came out to help me with my son because he was, not going to school because of the COVID lockdown, and I was still working. And I was working retail at the time. And my mom and I were talking about how we're so sensitive and how her mom was that way, how my son is very sensitive, how my brother's very sensitive. And we never really thought much of it. We never knew about the trait of high sensitivity. And my mom flew back to Wisconsin and she went on her YouTube. And you know how our phones, our technology has a tendency to hear what we're talking about. And a YouTube video came up of a TED Talk of a woman talking about the trait of high sensitivity. And immediately my mom sent me the video and I watched it. And from that moment, it was like everything in my life made sense.
Wow.
It was this major aha moment where everything made sense and I had every emotion come over me. I was excited, I was curious. Being a researcher, we like to research things, us highly sensitive. So I was excited to dig in deep and research the trait of high sensitivity. And I was feeling a little, not embarrassed, but a little, kind of all over the place. But mostly my feeling was, I had this sense of calm come over me because I finally had a name for what I was experiencing, which was high sensitivity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other really unique part about this story, Janice, which I think your viewers will really appreciate, is so I am a highly sensitive person and I also coach highly sensitive people. And my niche is working with highly sensitive people who struggle with alcohol.
Yeah.
And the day that my mom sent me this TED Talk, it was a Sunday morning and
Mhm.
it was at 10 a.m. and I happened to be drinking a beer. And I can say that with laughter now, but it didn't occur to me until a year later when I thought about that memory. I thought about that memory several times of my mom sending me that TED Talk, but I finally made the connection a year later that I was drinking a beer when she sent this to me. and it was a Sunday morning at 10 a.m. So I was probably nursing a hangover, um, or, wanting to get the party started early for Sunday fun day. But I find that really telling because at that moment, when I realized that I was using alcohol to numb my high sensitivity all my life. And it was a very powerful moment.
That's a huge aha moment. I mean, the correlation, the timing, and
Yeah.
discovering, oh, this is what's going on. And until I met a mutual friend of ours, I had no idea that I was, and I'm not in the high category. I'm kind of in the mid range as far as being highly sensitive. Yet it was very eye-opening. And
Extremely.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's and so that's why, we're going to continue on this theme off and on with our podcast because I want people to be aware that if they're struggling with something and they don't know what
Mhm.
it could be that they are highly sensitive. It definitely is a just a powerful influencer in our lives.
And it makes sense because the saying goes, you've got to name it to tame it. And not that I want to necessarily tame who I am with my sensitivity, but what it does is it provides a framework and how I go about my life and how I start my day. And every single area of my life is impacted from my high sensitivity. And I'm on the higher end of the spectrum. So I know what it's like to be very overwhelmed and to be very overstimulated from a day of working retail, from all the noises and the people and the interactions. I know what it's like to be impacted by trauma and then to experience post-traumatic growth after the healing. So it was a really great moment. There is a little bit of, that shame of the drinking aspect because I felt that I hid it for so long from so many people and those closest to me that now it's my mission to talk very openly about it and to share my story and to share my journey. And I'm 2.5 years alcohol free. So
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, you are definitely a delightful lady and so much fun to talk to and so open and
Thank you.
transparent. That's the only way once we get to that point that we can open up and realize it's okay, but we've got to be in a safe place. We've got to,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely. And I think too, for me, that safe space was the understanding of it's okay. This is the way God, creator, source made me. And it's embracing that true, authentic self that has really helped me and propelled me to live my life forward while understanding it backwards, really.
yeah, I've been doing a lot of looking at different aspects of my life too. And as you were talking about overwhelm, it explains something about when I first started in sales in a past marriage. I would come back after work and I'd talk to people all day. I'd been around people all day, and then you're dealing with sales and trying to close deals and this
Oh,
that
yes.
was, my early days. But I remember vividly my ex, who is a wonderful friend, may watch this.
Yeah.
And he would say, don't you want to talk? And I would just look at him with the deer in the headlights going, that's all I've done all day. I talked and talked.
Yes.
And I've heard that from other people too, that, you get, and you don't even realize it's overwhelm. You don't realize, you just think I'm just tired, but it's so mentally stimulating in certain professions that, and there's long stories about it happening more and more. But isn't that true? We get like, that's it. Shut down,
Yeah.
watch a
Well,
movie.
sure. And what's so helpful for me, and when I explain high sensitivity to others who don't know about the trait,
Yeah.
is the acronym DOES that Dr. Elaine Aron, who is kind of a pioneer in the trait of high sensitivity, and she came up with this acronym DOES to describe the characteristics or the trait of high sensitivity. And the D stands for depth of processing. The O stands for overwhelm or overstimulation or over arousal.
Mm.
And then whereas the E stands for empathy, and the S stands for sensory sensitivity. So when you understand that the overwhelm is just part of how our nervous system responds to the stimuli, it really helps to have a framework to incorporate things into your daily routine and your habits and your life to combat that overwhelm and to, nurture that nervous system regulation. So, yeah, for me, it was the overstimulating. I had many root causes of my drinking, but really a lot of it was that overstimulation from working retail. And I'd come home and I'd drink a bottle and a half of wine every night for
Yeah.
two decades.
Yeah, I totally understand that. It makes sense because you can think you've got a nervous system problem, and I've dealt with that. I've dealt with PTSD, which, comes and goes
Yeah.
in that case. However, I started realizing more and more, learning that my nervous system can be overactive and learning how to step back and chill. There's certain conversations that I just have to not be involved in or step away from
Yes.
because they're not in alignment. And once you are aware of what kind of triggers you, and I don't even really like that word, but it's true, we
Yeah.
can get provoked, we can call it provoked or triggered. It's important that we are able to step back, and I journal, some people, whatever they need to do.
Same.
Yeah. It's important that we learn that it's okay to be who we are. And that's a topic that's really becoming more and more of a theme with my podcast. So let me ask you on that note, what you did and when your mom sent you that
Mhm.
YouTube, I consider that a very courageous act when you started to look at all the pieces coming together. Reflect on the courage it took and a little bit more about that particular time in your life.
Absolutely. It was such a difficult time in my life because we were in the middle of COVID. I had started on a spiritual awakening in 2020. I also entered into some perimenopause goodness of hormones, and I
Yeah.
was having a lot of blood sugar imbalances. I had leaky gut. I had candida overgrowth. I know those are big fancy words, but basically, I was kind of a hot mess.
Oh, my.
And the courage that I had to face my root causes was the first step. I had to embrace life and all of the messiness of my life, and I had to open Pandora's box. And that takes courage. And I personally wear my badge of high sensitivity with honor. I've never had shame in that regard, but I had shame around the alcohol use. So that in and of itself was courageous and still is. I mean, I do identity statements every morning where I step out and say, I'm confident, courageous, consistent, and capable. Because walking in my true authentic self, talking about my alcohol struggles that I hid for so long was a really a real courageous first step. And that's really where it started for me. And I've always considered myself a confident and courageous person.
Mhm.
I grew up playing piano on the stage and grew up doing many competitions, and so I'd always had that. But this was another level of courage that I was a little I mean, honestly, too, Janice, thinking back on my journey, before I had my aha moment, before I knew I was highly sensitive, before I made the connection with the alcohol, I knew years before that God, creator, source, was going to use that in my story. And I fought it. I fought it for many years. And I said, oh, we'll just keep drinking and we'll just keep, forgetting that this voice keeps telling me that this is going to be part of my story, that intuition that HSPs have.
Hmm.
And lo and behold, the universe, it was like, no, this is your story, this is your journey. And that took a lot of courage. Still does.
Oh, every day,
Every
absolutely
day.
every day. And there was a thought that I had. Yes, I was going to mention how did you deal with fears that were coming up that were, because I've dealt with that a lot of like, okay, I did it before, I can do it again. Well, I don't know that I can do it again. Or can I really get through this? Is this reasonable? How did fear come try to grab you and pull you back out of that courage?
That's a great question. Um, there's a spiritual component to that, but there's also the fear. I think that for me, the courage was louder than the fear.
Okay.
And there's moments where there's a little fear that creeps up, of course, because I'm human. But for me, I just pressed on and I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And I think the biggest thing for me was when I was at rock bottom. I mean, I was having daily panic and anxiety attacks. I was drinking heavily. My nervous system was a mess. My gut was a mess, as I said. And I told my mom, I said, I don't think I'm going to make it. I actually thought I was dying, and I had some suicide ideation as well, suicidal ideation. And my mom said, you will get through this. You will get through this. And my mom is my best friend. She's, in a way, a lifeline for me. And when she said that to me, I knew I was going to be okay. But for me, I've always had a relationship with my creator. So for fear, I knew to almost ride the wave and just know that it would pass and to just keep pressing on because my mission was so important and to stay alive. I have a son, I have a family that loves me, and I love my life. And that's what didn't make sense for me is here I was having all these, because there again, the chemistry was off. I was, flooding my body with toxins from alcohol, and I had all this blood sugar, which caused the anxiety and the panic. And I loved my life, but I just didn't see a way out of it in moments, and thankfully that passed. But yeah, just keep pressing on and doing it in spite of the fear of being seen, the fear of being rejected, the fear of being judged, and just this is who I am, and I will find my tribe, and it may resonate with some and not with others, and that's okay.
It is okay. A lot of times when I'm talking with people in many different situations, who am I? I remember a friend many years ago who joined a group where you learn to speak publicly. She said the first thing she had to talk about, they sent her back with the assignment of who am I? She she just and really most people look like a deer in the headlights, like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a blah blah
Yes.
blah. And no, that's what you do. It
Right.
is the hardest question to answer.
Yes.
And it's scary. It's like, what do you mean, who am I? And that's what you sounds like a lot of what you were wrestling with is who is Gretchen? Who? Not just a mom, not just a daughter, not just blah blah blah, but it was the who are you because you were wandering trying to figure that out from my perspective.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what's the saying they say fear is the false evidence appearing real. So a lot of that is, to the stories we tell ourselves. And I'm a master rewriter of my stories. I rewrite them all the time when things pop up in my mind. But
Right.
pressing on and really getting confident in who I am and really developing some thick skin because I didn't know life any differently. I knew life. I was never shy. I'm very extroverted. Well, I'm actually an ambivert. I prefer I'm a good mix of both. I'm a good mix of the introvert and the extrovert, which is the ambivert.
Hmm.
But I never fully understood myself.
Mhm.
I loved myself, but I never understood myself. And then once I understood myself, I'm like, okay, all right, world, look out, here I
I
am.
love that. Well, you just gave me a good segue into confidence. So
Yeah,
let's talk about how you transitioned from being that person who,
yeah,
you know, was in that situation. You're learning who you are a little bit more and more. Let's let's transition into confidence because you at some point made a decision to help others with what you were learning about yourself and being highly sensitive. Talk about that with our audience, and we can see how you went from here gradually. And mind you, audience, it's not here to here. There's some territory in the middle and
absolutely.
not pretty sometimes.
Yes, great question. I would say the journey to my confidence really started at the young age of being on stage and doing piano competitions, but never accepting myself. So for your viewers, I'm almost 6 feet tall. I'm very tall. I'm very, I have a presence about me. So I've always carried myself confidently, but I never had the inner confidence because I didn't have the inner understanding. So once I understood myself and my high sensitivity, once I reframed my past in light of my high sensitivity, once I worked through some trauma and started on the healing journey, and we have a tendency as highly sensitive people to emerge on the other side of that and have that spiritual emergence through the healing journey. And my confidence just naturally started to come through. I think too, maybe some of it was my age. Maybe some of it was because I was starting to battle
Oh, audience.
my root causes from my drinking. The drinking kept me, you know, in a low vibration, and it kept me on an energetic level on a bad um, state of mind. So the confidence for me, I slowly started to get comfortable with who I am in my own skin and really embrace, who I am. It also helped that I lost the inflammation weight that I had gained from all of the stress from everything. So I lost like 30 pounds and well, closer to 20, 25 pounds.
Mhm.
And so I really started to feel confident in that regard too. So it was kind of a whole journey and just feeling confident in sharing my story with other people because I kept it a secret and I kept my drinking. I was really ashamed of it. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't know how to talk about it, even though my mom gave me plenty of chances to talk about it growing up and kind of warned me that that was a situation in our family genetics that could be a possibility for me. So just the overall confidence in helping others to step into their true authentic self confidently is really my mission, and to help them with their journey through high sensitivity and alcohol use.
Yeah, that's great. Speaking of which, we have a few minutes left, and I want you to talk about what you do and how you. I know there's still some transitions going on.
Yes,
Uh, we seem to stay in that point, and if you think you're ever there, no, you're never going to be there.
exactly.
You're never going to be there.
Right.
Okay, maybe one day you'll be there, but you won't be on the planet. Uh,
Yes.
yeah. So tell our audience, Gretchen, a little bit more about what you're doing and how they can we'll have your contact information, of course. However, I'd like you to discuss just the passion that comes from what you do and how people can reach out and how you can help them.
I love it. And this ties into your C, your connection, because as highly sensitive people, we crave that connection with others. We crave going deep quickly. We crave those deep connections at a soul and spiritual level. And so that for me is also just the icing on the cake in what I do because I've gone through it and I know what it's like. I know how people feel. And what I do now is I left the retail world. That was the universe was like, nope, you're not doing that. You're going over here. This is what you're doing. And I actually started as a nutrition coach. I'm a certified transformational nutrition coach. And my niche is highly sensitive people and their mental wellness. So I work with highly sensitive people that are using alcohol to self-soothe their sensitive nervous system, or what I like to say, numb out, which is also an emotional buffering word. And I have a course called Stop Numbing, Start Living. And it's a journey through the trait of high sensitivity and also we talk about and we deep dive into the alcohol use and how it relates to high sensitivity. And I do want to point out while there's no concrete research yet per se between the link of high sensitivity and alcohol use disorder, many highly sensitive people and many psychologists and psychiatrists have noticed the connection between high sensitivity and substance abuse. And then they also they learn in the Stop Numbing, Start Living course how to break free from alcohol. You know, what are their stories around alcohol? Why do they want to quit alcohol? And really connecting the cognitive dissonance. So cognitive is the way that we think, and dissonance literally means agreement. So really bridging the gap and creating neuroplasticity, rewiring the brain so that everything is in harmony with the desires of the soul and the brain and the body, and everything is in unison in that desire. So that's what I do. And then there is going to be a community aspect of that too, which is really that connection part. So I do offer individual coaching
Mhm.
if someone finds themselves wanting help in a certain area for high sensitivity. But the Stop Numbing, Start Living is really the foundation. It's more my niche, and they can seek help with me one on one with that as well, but also on the community level as that course as I build out that community.
That's fantastic because we do crave that connection that
You.
is so vital. And it's true with all of humanity. We
Mm,
just happen to be people that are highly sensitive. We happen to crave it at a deeper level.
we do. Yeah.
And the loss of that can create some real havoc in our lives. It
And
really,
I will say that that was for me, I felt very isolated during my journey. And yes, I had friends and family members that were close to me, but I didn't have the support that I needed. And I didn't have the deep connection to just go big and or go home, roll up our sleeves, put our big girl pants on, and let's just, talk about it because it's real and it's raw and it's okay.
the a point just came up when you were talking that a lot of people, and I've worked with people like this in my coaching, they just want to push through and push through and push through.
Yeah.
For me, that grit and that there is an anger portion behind that. There is something that people take the anger and they channel it and then they barrel through one way or the other. However, I don't know if this is true for everybody, but for me, I've done that and I still can, but that's not necessarily courage. That's just taking your stubbornness and pushing through regardless. However, I have found a very effective thing to just, okay, something comes up, instead of reacting or coming after it with, on a charging horse, to sit back and think, all right, let's put this in a different framework, a different perspective,
Yes.
and take a few deep breaths, even just get out of that mindset altogether.
Yes.
But I have coached people that they just barrel through and push through. Whew, that'll wear you out.
Well, and that could be a trauma response too, because that could just, there's some underlying root cause issues of that behavior. And everyone's journey is unique to theirs. Someone, it may take a little longer. As highly sensitive people, we are deep processors. So we do chew on things a little bit longer. So only that individual will know their journey and their time and what they're comfortable with.
Mhm.
But let's face it, healing is a lifelong journey. I mean, we're never fully there, like you said, until we're on the other side. So it's a journey. It's not a destination. And to have the discernment to take a step back and to realize, what are my emotions trying to tell me right now? Because our emotions are messengers. And what do I need in this moment? Do I need to close my eyes and connect with my body? Do I need to go outside and ground and touch nature? Do I need to journal? I'm a big journaler too. What is my body telling me right now? And doing a lot of, breath work and meditation and honoring the body and honoring it, what it's trying to tell you and what it's trying to communicate. And that may take shorter for some folks and longer for others, and that there's no right or wrong, but to try to barrel through it is, you know it might not, it might backfire, it might not work so well for some.
Absolutely. And I've worked with people that when I teach them that they just need to pull back and give it a little space. And
Yes.
another thing before we wrap it up is I would advise you, if you really want some assistance, to reach out to Gretchen. However, don't just go tell everybody in the world about your problems and how you're
Right.
feeling,
Yeah.
because that backfires pretty much every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so stick with yourself. She's a safe zone.
Yes.
I'm a safe zone, but I refer people to her for particular issues and situations that I'm not only not equipped, but I'm not gifted with handling. We all have our lane, and
Yeah.
I love that we both have the HSP connection.
Yeah.
She's the specialist over there.
Yes, this is my niche. I've lived it. I embrace it because it's my journey. And there again, like I said earlier, I fought it, and the universe and God was like, "You're done fighting, girl. This is, you're gonna do it this way now, and you're gonna walk the other side of this and show others what's possible when you do break free from alcohol."
Yes, and I was in retail for a while, a couple of times in my life, and oh boy, it's grueling. However, the universe, God has a way of getting our attention if we're just going, no, I'm stubborn and I'm going to do it. This is it. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to do that until we open our hands and say, okay, this isn't working so well. I'm going to let it go. And another thing that's hard to do is letting go. That takes, that
That takes
takes,
courage to surrender. And real quick before we do go,
yeah.
that's something that's really important in my story that I maybe didn't say is I prayed for many years because I loved retail, but I wanted more. I wanted deep connection, right? I wanted something, I just didn't know what. And I thought, okay, interior design, I love photography, there's so many things that I love, but what does my soul want? And so I really prayed heavily over it. And then, I was fighting it too. So that's when the universe just made the decision for me. And I mean, obviously I had put it out there, and it just happened so organically. And the retail store that I was working at, the owners decided to close it because they live in Arizona. And it was like I'm feeling called to because of my awakening and my passion for wellness and nutrition. And, as a C.T.N.C, as a certified transformational nutrition coach, it's a three-prong approach. It's mental, physical, and spiritual nutrition because it's not just food. People think nutrition is just food, and it's so much more than that. So, I mean, I'm just walking in my soul's purpose and loving it.
I think that's fantastic, and we're gonna wrap it up here. All of Gretchen's information will be available. This will be broadcast on multiple channels, including my website, which you can see back there. It will be on my website as well as YouTube, and we'll have her information, how to contact her. And if you can't figure out how to get hold of her, you can contact me, and I'll send you that way. And I am so thankful that I have so many wonderful people that are joining me on my podcast and having fun talking and being transparent with where they are, what they're doing, and how they can assist others. That's what it's about, and making those connections.
Yes, I love it. Thank you.
Gretchen, thank you so much for being my
Such
guest.
an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, you said you've been looking forward to it for a while. I'm like, well, that is just so special to me.
Yes, yes.
So we're going to sign off for today. This is Janice Debo for Courage, Confidence, Connections podcast. We will see you next time and take care.
Bye, everyone.